Tenshira X Wednesday by Rimuru. The night sky stretched infinitely over Jericho, Vermont, its darkness only broken by the glow of a full moon hanging like a silent guardian. The town below was quiet, its streets bathed in pale silver light, casting long, eerie shadows. The towering spires of Nevermore Academy stood in the distance, an ominous yet magnificent structure nestled between the dense, whispering trees. Wind howled softly through the Academy's Gothic corridors, carrying with it an unsettling chill, as if the very air hummed with secrets. The Academy, home to outcasts, monsters, and misfits, rested under the moon's gaze, its very presence an enigma waiting to be unraveled. High above, on the balcony of Wednesday and Enid's shared room, Wednesday Adams sat with her cello, fingers expertly gliding over the strings. Her expression remained as unreadable as ever, but there was something hypnotic in the way she played. The song, Painted Black, by the Rolling Stones, resonated through the night air, the melancholic tune weaving itself into the fabric of the darkened sky. The deep, haunting notes echoed across the courtyard, filling the Academy with an eerie, almost mournful beauty. Far in the distance, a werewolf's howl pierced the air, a ghostly accompaniment to Wednesday's melody. From below, Xavier, standing near the school walls, had been sketching a raven on the Academy's stone facade. As the music reached his ears, he paused, tilting his head slightly, his expression shifting to something peculiar, half amusement, half intrigue. His eyes drifted up toward the balcony where Wednesday sat, his lips curling into an odd smile before he turned back to his drawing. Meanwhile, in a small greenhouse filled with carnivorous plants, Marilyn Thornhill gently fed a struggling Venus flytrap, the squirming worm vanishing between its snapping jaws. A warm smile spread across her face, but there was something off about it, too controlled, too calculated. The moonlight cast a shadow over her expression, making it almost unreadable. Back in her office, Principal Weems flipped through a student application, her keen eyes scanning every word. A faint smirk crossed her lips as she leaned back, her gaze shifting to the window. The sound of Wednesday's cello performance had reached even here, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to appreciate it. Her fingers tapped against the paper in her hands, an application belonging to someone very, very interesting. Unseen by all, perched atop the roof directly above Wednesday and Enid's room, Rimuru Nightshade stood in the shadows, his piercing crimson eyes reflecting the moonlight. His long midnight black hair, streaked with silver and crimson highlights, swayed gently in the breeze. His expression was unreadable, but a rare, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. Che Luna Maravigliosa, what a marvelous moon! He thought, his voice a whisper in the night. The music, the moonlight, the very air itself, it all blended together into something surreal. Inside his mind, a familiar voice echoed. Less than, Master, I suggest saving this moment to your memory. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled softly. Yes, do it. Less than, understood. Moment recorded. Greater than. He leaned against the rooftop's edge, arms crossed, simply enjoying the night. As the last notes of her song faded into the night, Wednesday sighed, fingers lingering on the strings of her cello. Beside her, Thing, who had been dutifully flipping through sheet music, tapped the pages and gestured toward her with an expectant motion. How do I feel? She murmured, her voice monotone. Not entirely fulfilled. Thing let out an exasperated wiggle. I have an odd feeling about this place, she continued, eyes narrowing slightly. And it's not just because it's a school. Before she could dwell on the thought, Enid appeared, arms crossed, staring at Wednesday with sheer disbelief. Okay, how the hell did you get that oversized cello through this tiny window? Enid demanded. Wednesday turned to her with a blank stare. I have an extra hand. At that, Thing waved at Enid. Enid let out a strangled gasp, jumping back slightly. Oh my god, where's the rest of him? Wednesday smirked slightly. That remains one of the greatest mysteries of the Addams family. Enid took a step closer, cautiously examining the disembodied hand. That's both fascinating and terrifying. Wednesday ignored her reaction, instead turning to the werewolf girl with a calculated look. Why don't you meet up with the other werewolves tonight? It's a full moon, she pointed out. Enid's expression faltered. She extended her hand, revealing her claws, small, unimpressive, barely noticeable. This is all I have, she admitted quietly. Nothing more. I'm different. I don't belong. She looked down from the balcony. I'm all alone. Wednesday remained expressionless. What's wrong with being alone? Enid gawked at her. Are you insane? No one can live alone forever. Wednesday tilted her head slightly. No one can live together forever either. Enid groaned, rubbing her temples. You don't understand what I'm saying, she sighed. Have you ever even cried before? Silence stretched between them. Then, finally, Wednesday spoke. Once. Enid looked genuinely shocked. Seriously. Wednesday nodded. I was 10. I took a morning walk with my pet scorpion. Some boys found us. They kicked it, trapped it under a boot, and made me watch as they crushed it. She paused. That day, I cried my blackened heart out. For once, Enid had no words. Wow, that was. Enid blinked. Sad, then, she added, but also, a little creepy. Before Wednesday could respond, a voice interrupted them from behind. OWW, don't say that to Wednesday, Enid. Both girls turned sharply, startled, only to see Rimuru standing in the shadows of their room. Enid jumped. How the hell did you get in here? I didn't even hear you. Rimuru smirked, stepping forward with the grace of a predator. Don't worry about it, Dolce Lupo. Sweet wolf. His crimson eyes glowed softly in the dim light, locking onto Wednesday's. That song you played moments ago. Wednesday's expression remained unreadable. What about it? A slow smirk crept across his lips. I loved it. Painted black, by the Rolling Stones, yes. She nodded. Enid blinked. Wait, that's a real song. Wednesday let out a long-suffering sigh. Yes. She turned back to Rimuru, scrutinizing him. Why are you here? He smiled, his voice silky, playful, dangerously smooth. Just enjoying the beautiful night, the moonlight, and, he leaned slightly closer. Your music. Thing leapt onto Wednesday's shoulder, studying Rimuru curiously. Rimuru's smirk widened. Ah, and this must be Thing. Wednesday narrowed her eyes. How do you know about him? His voice was a whisper, yet it held undeniable amusement and danger. Io ho I mie modi di trovare informazioni, I have my ways of finding information. Enid shuddered. Your, sounded a little creepy. Wednesday's eyes remained locked onto Rimuru's. Whatever. Then, she turned back to Enid. Show me how to make a call on your laptop. Rimuru chuckled. Ooh, looks like something interesting is about to happen. And he couldn't wait to see it unfold. In Tyler's room. Here's a 1200-word scene adapted from Wednesday, Netflix, incorporating Tyler's room, his encounter with Thing, and his conversation with Wednesday and Rimuru. Tyler's room, a sudden visitor. Tyler Galpin's room was simple, with a rustic charm that reflected Jericho's small-town aesthetic. The walls were lined with bookshelves holding a mix of crime novels and old records, while his desk was cluttered with scattered papers, an old-fashioned lamp, and a half-empty cup of coffee. A worn-out baseball glove sat on a nearby chair, and posters of classic rock bands adorned the walls. The room carried a faint scent of pine and the strong aroma of brewed coffee, a constant reminder of his part-time job at the Weathervane Cafe. Sitting at his desk, Tyler was flipping through the pages of a worn-out novel, trying to focus despite his mind wandering. The past few days had been strange, stranger than usual, even by Jericho's standards. Nevermore students had always been an enigma, but Wednesday Addams took it to another level. Knock, knock. The sound was faint but distinct. Tyler furrowed his brows and looked up from his book. The noise had come from the window. With a sigh, he pushed his chair back, stretching his arms as he walked toward the window. Probably just the wind or a branch tapping against the glass, he thought. Still, there was an uneasy feeling in his gut. Unlocking the window, he pulled it open, letting the cold night air seep in. The full moon cast an eerie glow over Jericho, illuminating the quiet streets below. But there was nothing there. No bird, no tree branch, nothing unusual at all. Weird, he muttered before shaking his head and shutting the window again. As he turned around, a sudden movement caught his eye. A shadow darted across his peripheral vision, moving fast. He barely had time to react before something landed on his desk with a thud. A severed hand. Holy crap, Tyler yelled, stumbling backward in horror. His heart pounded as he stared at the disembodied hand crawling across his desk. His breath hitched, and instinct took over. His eyes darted to the baseball bat leaning against his wall. Grabbing the bat in one swift motion, he swung at the thing, whatever it was. Thing, however, was quick. It leapt off the desk, landing on the floor as the bat whistled through the air, missing by inches. Tyler exhaled sharply. Okay, fine. Maybe I imagined that first swing. But no way in hell am I hallucinating a hand. He gritted his teeth and swung again. Thing, with precise timing, skittered to the left, evading the attack effortlessly. Are you serious right now? Tyler growled, gripping the bat tighter. One more time. He swung down hard, determined to smash the damn thing. But Thing, as if mocking him, jumped onto the bat itself, grabbing hold of it midswing. Tyler's eyes widened. What the? Thing wrenched the bat out of his hands. Tyler staggered backward, watching in stunned silence as the hand effortlessly tossed the bat across the room. It hit the floor with a dull clatter. Thing then turned back toward Tyler, standing still, its fingers tapping against the desk as if waiting. Tyler gulped, slowly raising his hands in surrender. Okay, I surrender. Please don't choke me to death in my sleep. Thing flexed its fingers and pointed firmly to the chair. You want me to sit? Tyler asked hesitantly. Thing gave an exaggerated nod. With a sigh, Tyler cautiously sat down, still watching the hand as if it might pounce at any second. Thing then reached into its palm and pulled out Tyler's phone, tossing it toward him. Tyler barely caught it, fumbling as he looked at the screen in confusion. The hell is this? Thing lifted its palm to reveal a number scrawled across it in black ink. You want me to call this number? Thing nodded again, this time tapping its fingers impatiently. Tyler sighed, rubbing his temples. I am literally taking orders from a disembodied hand. This is not weird at all. With a resigned shake of his head, he dialed the number and put the phone on speaker. A second later, a familiar, deadpan voice answered. Galpin. Tyler blinked. Wednesday. There was a pause before Wednesday sighed. I take it Thing got to you. Tyler stared at the hand, which waved smugly at him. Yeah, and I gotta say, even for Nevermore, this is next level creepy, he muttered. Thing, in response, promptly flipped him off. Tyler scoffed. Oh, real mature. I see you've met his charming personality, Wednesday deadpanned. Tyler shook his head. So, why are you calling me? You don't exactly strike me as someone who uses technology. I had no choice but to learn, Wednesday replied. Which is an experience I will gladly erase from my memory as soon as possible. Tyler chuckled. Wow, almost sounded like a normal human emotion there. Wednesday ignored him. I need your help. I'm escaping Nevermore. Tyler raised an eyebrow. And you need me for that? I am offering you money. Tyler smirked. Tempting. But I don't need money. Wednesday's voice remained impassive. Then what do you want? Tyler leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers against the armrest. To come with you. Silence. At least one of us should have an interesting night, he added. More silence. Voice, smooth and dangerously calm, spoke next. Tyler. Tyler froze. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as he turned toward his window, eyes darting to the reflection. He hadn't heard anyone else join the call, but that voice. That voice was right. Behind Wednesday. Tyler hesitated. Are you guys, like, roommates or something? Wednesday was quick to respond. No. The reason he's here is unknown to me. Tyler squinted at his phone screen. What, his name? Enid waved cheerfully. I am Wednesday's roommate. Hi again, I am Enid. Tyler waved back awkwardly before pointing at the real question mark in the situation. I meant him. The stranger chuckled. A smooth, low chuckle that sent a chill down Tyler's spine. Scusa. Where are my manners? The voice grew softer, almost teasing. Rimuru Nightshade. Tyler swallowed. There was something about the way he said his name, like it rolled off his tongue too easily. Happy to meet ya, Rimuru added, voice dripping with mock sincerity. Tyler exhaled. Yeah. I remember you, cool. Great. Wednesday, unfazed, moved the conversation along. What's the best time to begin? Tyler took a moment before answering. Tomorrow night. Festival. It'll be the perfect distraction. Wednesday nodded. Got it. And with that, she hung up. Tyler turned to Thing, who was already crawling toward the window. You're leaving, right? Thing gave him a thumbs up before jumping out. Tyler sighed, rubbing his temples. What the hell did I just get myself into? Meanwhile, Rowan moved carefully through the abandoned corridor, his steps light but deliberate. The air was thick with dust, the scent of old stone and forgotten history clinging to the walls. He wasn't supposed to be here, no one was, but that never stopped him before. He came to a halt before a grand statue, its presence looming in the dim light. The figure was carved from dark marble, its features obscured by age and shadow. Though cracked and worn, the statue still exuded an eerie authority, as if watching him with unseen eyes. Rowan took a steady breath, raised his hand, and snapped his fingers once. The sound barely echoed. He snapped them again. A deep, mechanical groan rumbled beneath his feet. Dust cascaded from the base of the statue as the stone shifted, revealing a hidden entrance. The air around him seemed to pulse as the concealed door slid open, revealing a passageway descending into the unknown. Without hesitation, Rowan stepped inside, the hidden entrance sealing behind him with a heavy, final thud. The chamber beyond was vast, lined with towering shelves that stretched endlessly into the darkness. Flickering candlelight barely touched the edges of the room, casting jagged shadows that danced like living things. The scent of ancient parchment, ink, and something metallic filled the air. Rowan moved with purpose. He reached the center of the chamber and lifted his hand toward a particular bookshelf. As if sensing his intent, a single, dust-covered tome trembled before lifting from its place, gliding into his waiting grasp. The book was old, older than anything he had ever seen. Its leather cover was cracked, its symbols nearly worn away by time. He flipped through its brittle pages, scanning the cryptic writings until his eyes landed on something that made him pause. An image. Strange, ominous, almost alive. The ink seemed to shift under his gaze, twisting as if trying to escape the page. His expression darkened. Without hesitation, he reached out and tore the page free. A sudden rush of cold air swept through the chamber. The candle flames sputtered violently, casting erratic shadows against the walls. The book slipped from his grasp, landing with a dull thud on the stone floor. Rowan didn't react. He tightened his grip on the torn page, turned on his heel, and strode toward the exit. Behind him, the chamber returned to its eerie silence, the hidden library once again swallowed by darkness, its secrets disturbed, but not yet revealed. The night of the Farsi VRL. Jericho's annual Farsi VRL festival was in full swing. Strings of glowing lights hung between vendor stalls, illuminating the night with a warm golden hue. The scent of fried food and caramel apples filled the crisp autumn air as carnival rides spun, and laughter echoed through the streets. Wednesday Addams stood still amidst the chaos, her signature deadpan expression unmoved by the festive atmosphere. She and Enid stood together near the main street, their eyes locked on Tyler, who was speaking with his father, Sheriff Galpin, a few feet away. "I want you home by 10, Sheriff Galpin said, his voice firm. Tyler, standing with his hands in his jacket pockets, sighed and shook his head. 12:30. The sheriff gave him an unimpressed look. Midnight. No more. Tyler smirked. So 12:30. The sheriff exhaled sharply, his patience thinning. 12. That's final. No arguments. Tyler rolled his eyes but nodded in agreement. The sheriff gave him one last warning look before walking away, disappearing into the festival crowd. Enid shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing at Wednesday. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of concern. Wednesday didn't look at her. "I am," Enid sighed. "And where's Rimuru?" Wednesday's eyes remained forward, void of emotion. "I don't know. And I'd rather not know." Enid sighed again before turning to her with a small, teasing smile. "Well then, good luck." She moved in for a hug, arms outstretched. Wednesday immediately stepped back. Enid chuckled, lowering her arms. "Still not a hugger. Got it." With a wink, she turned and walked off toward the festival games, leaving Wednesday alone. Wednesday turned toward a game stall where a collection of colorful balloons were pinned to a wooden board. A row of stuffed animals lined the shelves behind the vendor. Without hesitation, she picked up an arrow, aimed, and threw it. The balloon popped instantly. Another. Pop. Another. Pop. Just as she reached for the final arrow, a voice spoke behind her. "What are you up to now?" She didn't turn around. "None of your business, Xavier." Xavier Thorpe stepped beside her, watching her with an unreadable expression. "You sneaking around like this usually means trouble." Before Xavier could say another word, another voice interrupted, smooth, playful, and filled with amusement. "Xavier, mind if you mind your own business." Xavier turned, only to find Rimuru standing behind him. His usual confident smirk played on his lips, his crimson-red eyes glinting in the festival lights. Xavier's gaze darkened. "And who are you to order me around?" Rimuru chuckled lightly. "You have no idea who you're talking to, do you?" "I know exactly who I'm talking to." Rimuru tilted his head slightly, an amused grin forming. "I'm afraid you don't." The tension between them was thick, but before anything more could be said, Tyler approached. "So, Wednesday, shall we go?" Xavier and Tyler locked eyes, their silent animosity apparent. Neither spoke. Xavier finally scoffed and walked away without another word. Wednesday turned to Tyler. "I have someone to distract first." She turned back to the game stall, lifted her final arrow, and threw it, popping the last balloon effortlessly. The vendor clapped. "Winner." He handed her a large plush bear, but instead of taking it, Wednesday pulled out $40 and handed it to him. "That lovely woman over there needs this more than I do," she said, nodding toward Principal Weems, who was standing nearby, keeping an eye on her. The vendor, confused but not about to argue with cash, walked over to Weems and handed her the bear. The stuffed animal had a small voice box that chirped, "I love you. I love you." Weems stared at the plush toy, then turned sharply toward where Wednesday had been standing, only to find she was gone. Panic flickered across her face. Meanwhile, Wednesday and Tyler moved toward the festival entrance. Tyler glanced at her. So, where's Rimuru? I don't know, Wednesday replied flatly. And I don't want to know. Before they could take another step, a group of teenage boys blocked their path, the same ones from the coffee shop, still sporting bruises from their last encounter with Wednesday. Tyler immediately grabbed Wednesday's hand. This way. Without hesitation, they took off running, weaving through the crowd as the boys shouted after them. As they ran, Wednesday collided hard into someone. She stumbled, but before she could fall, Tyler caught her arm, steadying her. She blinked rapidly. The world around her blurred. The festival lights distorted, flickering violently. Then she saw it. Rowan, his face twisted in terror. His body being lifted, no, thrown, into the air by an unseen force. His screams echoed through the night, and then. Blood. So much blood. The vision ended as suddenly as it had come. Wednesday gasped, snapping back to reality. Tyler's voice cut through the haze. Wednesday, are you okay? She didn't answer. Her gaze locked onto Rowan, who was walking toward the forest. Without a word, she pulled away from Tyler and took off after him, leaving him standing there in confusion. Tyler called out, but she didn't stop. As Rowan entered the thick forest, his footsteps barely making a sound on the dirt path, Wednesday followed closely behind. The moonlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting long shadows across the ground. She could hear the faint rustling of leaves in the night breeze, but there was no turning back now. She had to stop Rowan before it was too late. Rowan, stop, she called out, her voice cutting through the quiet air like a sharp blade. He halted, but didn't turn around immediately. His posture stiffened, a subtle indication that he had heard her. When he finally faced her, his eyes were cold, distant. What do you want, Wednesday? Rowan's voice was calm, but there was an unsettling undercurrent to it. Wednesday hesitated, her eyes searching his for any hint of the person she once knew. But the boy she saw in front of her was different, darker. There's no time to explain, she said, her voice urgent. You're in danger. You need to leave before it's too late. Rowan raised an eyebrow, and then, to her surprise, he smiled. But the smile quickly twisted into something far more sinister, a laugh that sent chills crawling up her spine. In danger, he repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. No, Wednesday, I think you're mistaken. It's you who's in danger. Before she could react, Rowan raised his hand, his eyes locking onto hers with a determined gaze. A surge of energy erupted from his outstretched palm, and Wednesday felt herself being yanked off the ground. She was flung backwards with terrifying force, soaring through the air as though a giant invisible hand had grabbed her. Her body slammed into the trunk of a tree with a sickening thud, the impact leaving her winded. She gasped for air, trying to steady herself, but her head spun. What are you doing? Wednesday demanded, struggling to regain her footing. I'm saving the school, Rowan said, his voice calm, almost as though he were explaining something simple. He walked toward her, unfazed by the display of power. Her vision blurred for a moment, but she saw something, a piece of paper fluttering through the air, moving by some unseen force until it landed beside her. Wednesday's eyes narrowed as she recognized the torn page. It was an image, a drawing of her, holding a sword, standing amidst a burning school. The flames in the background consumed the entire building, the inferno raging out of control. Look at it, Rowan said, his voice low and almost reverential. That's you, Wednesday. This was drawn by my mother, 15 years ago, when she was a student here. He looked down at the page, his gaze filled with a mixture of reverence and something darker, something colder. She always told me, Wednesday is the one who will destroy the school. And it's my duty to stop you. Her eyes darted from the drawing to Rowan, disbelief flashing across her face. You're trying to kill me, because of a drawing your mother made? She asked, incredulous. Rowan didn't answer. Instead, he stared at her, his expression unreadable. The silence between them thickened, suffocating. Suddenly, realization hit her like a ton of bricks. You're the one who tried to drop that statue on me, aren't you? Rowan's lips curled into a smile, but he didn't say anything. I don't want to do this, Wednesday, he said finally, his voice soft but menacing. But I have no choice. And with that, Rowan's hand tightened, and Wednesday felt an unbearable pressure around her neck. It was as though an invisible force was slowly crushing the life out of her. She gasped, struggling to breathe, her vision beginning to fade as she fought against the overwhelming sensation. Goodbye, Wednesday Addams, Rowan whispered, his voice a cold whisper in her ear. Just as her world started to go black, Wednesday saw something, a figure emerging from the shadows. A monstrous figure, terrifying and towering. It was a grotesque creature, its glowing eyes gleaming with malice as it lunged at Rowan, slamming him to the ground with brutal force. The creature, a massive, horrifying beast, raked its claws through the air and pierced Rowan's abdomen, its claws sinking deep into his flesh. Rowan let out a strangled cry as blood poured from the wound, his body spasming in agony. Wednesday could only watch in stunned silence as the monster dragged Rowan's body further into the darkness of the forest. Rowan's breath came in ragged gasps, and his eyes were wide with fear as the monster tore him apart. The once mighty boy, so full of power and intent, was now a broken shell. Wednesday couldn't tear her eyes away as the creature finished its gruesome task. Rowan's body lay lifeless on the ground, his blood staining the earth beneath him. The monster turned, locking eyes with her. Wednesday took an instinctive step back, her heart pounding in her chest, but before she could react, another figure emerged from the shadows. This one was different, graceful, silent, yet powerful. It was a figure that seemed to blend with the darkness itself, its long white hair flowing like ethereal silk. The creature that had appeared out of nowhere, and now it stood before her, a silent, faceless enigma. The monstrous creature lunged at Claw, its claws flashing through the air. But Claw moved with astonishing speed, dodging every swipe with ease. The two creatures collided in a blur of motion, the air thick with the sounds of their battle. Claw was unstoppable, his movements precise and deadly, each strike landing with the force of a thunderclap. The monster's attacks grew more frantic, but Claw remained unfazed, each dodge and strike a display of fluid, near-perfect skill. Finally, with a swift motion, Claw delivered a crushing blow to the monster's chest, sending it flying backward into the trees. The beast let out a final, anguished cry before it fled into the depths of the forest, vanishing into the darkness. The silence that followed was deafening. Claw turned toward Wednesday. He extended his hand toward her, offering her a way out of the horror she had just witnessed. Who are you? She asked, her voice trembling. Suddenly another voice spoke from behind her. That's Claw. He's my subordinate, Rimuru's voice said, smooth and calm. Let's just say he's kind of like thing. Wednesday turned around to see Rimuru floating above her, his black and red wings folding behind him. Slowly, he descended, his wings vanishing as he landed gracefully in front of her. He smiled, his expression both reassuring and dangerous. Claw bowed before Rimuru, a silent gesture of respect. Rimuru gave him a nod, acknowledging his thanks. Thank you for saving her, Rimuru said, his voice warm but still carrying an edge of command. Claw simply nodded, then disappeared into the shadows, leaving Wednesday alone with Rimuru. Wednesday watched him, her mind racing with questions. What's going on? She demanded, still shaken by the events she had just witnessed. Rimuru's eyes softened as he turned to her. It's complicated, but for now, let's deal with the immediate problem. Wednesday looked down at Rowan's lifeless body, the blood still staining the ground around him. Her eyes hardened. We can't leave him like this, she said quietly, her voice steady. We need to tell the others. Rimuru nodded, then glanced down at Rowan. You know, he said, his voice almost casual, I can bring him back to life. Wednesday froze in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat. What did you just say? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Rimuru smiled, a touch of amusement in his gaze. I said I can bring him back. It's no trouble at all. With a snap of his fingers, the air around Rowan's body seemed to shimmer. The blood that had soaked into the earth began to pull back into his wounds, and the gash in his abdomen slowly began to heal. Rowan's chest rose and fell, a faint but steady breath filling his lungs. He groaned softly, his eyes fluttering open, though he remained unconscious. Take him to his room, Rimuru said to Claw, who appeared once more from the shadows. Claw nodded silently and, without a word, picked Rowan up and disappeared again. Wednesday stood there, watching in stunned silence, unsure of how to process everything. Well, Rimuru said, breaking the silence. Shall we inform the others? As Wednesday turned to walk away, Rimuru's voice stopped her once more. You knew I could bring him back, didn't you? She stopped mid-step, then turned back to face him. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Rimuru gave a soft, almost playful smile. Some things are better left unsaid. Rimuru and Wednesday walked side by side through the dense woods, the moonlight barely piercing the thick canopy above them. The night was quiet, save for the occasional rustling of leaves in the breeze. Rowan's unconscious body had been taken away by Claw, leaving them with nothing but unanswered questions and a shared silence. After a while, Rimuru broke it. Hey, Wednesday, he said casually, glancing at her with his usual playful smirk. How about we keep this a secret? Wednesday stopped in her tracks, turning to face him with her cold, calculating stare. And why, exactly, would we do that? Rimuru sighed, his crimson eyes gleaming faintly in the dark. Because telling people would just make things worse, he explained. And besides, do you really think they'd believe us? Wednesday's expression remained unreadable, but her tone was sharp. We have proof. Rowan is alive. Rimuru chuckled, shaking his head. That's exactly the problem. She narrowed her eyes. Explain. With another sigh, Rimuru crossed his arms. Listen, Wednesday, when someone is brought back to life in this world, something has to be sacrificed. It's a rule. Wednesday raised an eyebrow. Sacrificed? What do you mean? Most of the time, it's memories or emotions, Rimuru said, his tone uncharacteristically serious. Wednesday's gaze sharpened. So, you're saying Rowan might not remember anything? Rimuru nodded. That's right. This world has some odd rules when it comes to life and death. Something about the way he phrased that made Wednesday pause. She studied him carefully, sensing something deeper beneath his words. What do you mean, this world? Rimuru's smirk returned, playful and mysterious. Don't worry about it, he said smoothly. Let's just agree not to tell anyone about this, alright? Wednesday crossed her arms. And what about the monster? Rimuru tilted his head slightly, crimson and silver strands of his hair catching the moonlight. Well, he said, flashing a grin, let's find it together. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned and continued walking. Rimuru watched her for a moment, amused by her silence, then followed. As they moved deeper through the woods, Rimuru's thoughts drifted. This world has too many strange rules, different from my old one. He frowned slightly, remembering the creature that had attacked Rowan. What kind of monster was that? Inside his mind, a familiar presence stirred. Less than would you like a full analysis of the creature? Greater than. Raphael's voice echoed in his thoughts, precise and emotionless as always. Rimuru smirked, shaking his head. No thanks, Raphael. It's more fun figuring it out on my own. Less than acknowledged. Restraining unnecessary information processing. Greater than. He chuckled to himself. At least you're starting to understand me. With that, he quickened his pace to catch up to Wednesday. The forest eventually opened into a clearing near the fast travel area where students often moved between town and the academy. A tall, imposing figure stood there, arms crossed, waiting for them. Principal Weems. Her icy blue eyes locked onto them immediately, her expression sharp with irritation. Care to explain why you two ran off? She demanded. Wednesday remained silent, her face unreadable as ever. Rimuru, on the other hand, merely smirked. You wouldn't believe us even if we told you, Wednesday finally said. Weems, lips pressed into a thin line. Try me. We just found a new mystery to solve, Wednesday said simply. Weems exhaled sharply, clearly frustrated. Wednesday, I have warned you about your reckless behavior. And now you've dragged Mr. Nightshade into this as well. Rimuru placed a hand on his chest in mock offense. Oh, come on, headmistress. I was dragged willingly. Weems ignored his playful tone, her gaze hardening. Whatever it is, I don't want you two causing trouble. If you have discovered something dangerous, you should report it immediately. Wednesday's expression remained unmoved. We'll handle it. Weems clenched her jaw. You are students, not detectives. I won't tolerate you putting yourselves in danger. Rimuru's smirk widened. Technically, we already did. Weems inhaled deeply, clearly restraining her irritation. Enough. You're both going back to the academy. Now. Wednesday nodded slightly, as if already expecting this outcome. Rimuru, still grinning, gave a dramatic bow. As you wish, headmistress. Weems didn't look amused. With that, they began their walk back to Nevermore, Weems keeping a close eye on them the entire way. The academy loomed in the distance, its Gothic architecture standing against the night sky. The journey back was mostly silent, except for the occasional glance Weems shot at them, as if expecting them to run off again. When they finally arrived at the school gates, Weems stopped. Go to your dorms. And if I find out you've been sneaking around, we'll be on our best behavior, Rimuru interrupted smoothly, his tone dripping with amusement. Weems didn't look convinced. She gave Wednesday one last pointed look before turning on her heel and walking away. Once she was gone, Rimuru stretched his arms. Well, that was fun. Wednesday glanced at him. You enjoy being scolded. Not really, Rimuru admitted, but I enjoy seeing how much trouble we can get away with. Wednesday didn't respond. Instead, she started walking toward her dorm. Rimuru watched her for a moment before following. As they walked through the dark corridors of Nevermore, he thought about everything that had happened. The monster, Rowan, the strange rules of this world. Things are going to get more interesting. Inside his mind, Raphael stirred again. Less than, are you certain you do not require further analysis of the monster? Greater than. Rimuru smirked. Let's keep this a mystery for a little longer. Less than, acknowledged. Greater than. With that, he continued walking, the night stretching before him, filled with possibilities. In Wednesday's room, the dorm room was eerily silent. The only occupant, Wednesday Adams, sat at her desk, fingers poised over the keys of her antique black typewriter. The dim light from the lamp cast long shadows across the room, emphasizing the stark contrast between her dark wardrobe and the pale, gothic decor. Enid was still at the festival, meaning her side of the room remained untouched, an explosion of pastel colors and glittering decorations that felt oddly subdued without her chatter. Wednesday found the silence refreshing. She pressed the first key, the satisfying click of metal striking paper filling the void. A smirk tugged at the corners of her lips as she continued to type. The rhythmic clacking of the keys was the only sound, each letter bringing her closer to chronicling the macabre tales of her existence at Nevermore. Then, without warning, the small crystal ball resting on her table gave a soft, eerie glow. She stopped. Her dark eyes flicked toward the ball, her fingers hovering over the keys. The glow intensified, swirling within the glass like a trapped storm. She reached for it with measured precision, lifting it to eye level. Inside, the figures of her family flickered into view, her mother, Morticia Adams, regal and poised, her father, Gomez Adams, grinning with his usual boundless enthusiasm, and her younger brother, Pugsley Adams, looking both eager and slightly nervous. Pugsley was the first to speak, his voice carrying the same youthful energy as always. Hi, Wednesday. Wednesday arched a brow. How are you still alive? Pugsley blinked. I'm fine. Trying my best not to get bullied. Wednesday nodded approvingly. Good. If you need assistance, consider psychological warfare. It's far more effective than physical retaliation. Pugsley grinned. I'll try. Gomez beamed. M.I.A. More, how is your first week at Nevermore? Morticia's elegant voice followed, her tone both warm and knowing. Yes, darling, tell us everything. We're dying to know. Wednesday's expression remained neutral. She leaned back in her chair, crystal ball still glowing in her table. Let's see, she began, her tone clinical, as if listing groceries. I've been hunted, nearly killed, discovered I have a power capable of potentially destroying the school. She paused for dramatic effect. Oh, and I found out that the nightshades are far more intriguing than they seem. Gomez's brows shot up, and he let out an impressed chuckle. A most eventful first week, my dear. Morticia's lips curled in amusement, though her dark eyes betrayed a hint of curiosity. Power capable of destruction. Wednesday's gaze flickered with something unreadable. I had a vision, a glimpse of what's to come. It seems fate enjoys playing cruel tricks on me. Gomez sighed dreamily. Ah, fate. A cruel mistress but a fine dance partner. Morticia studied her daughter closely. And how do you feel about Nevermore, my little storm cloud? Wednesday hesitated for only a fraction of a second before answering. I think you were right, mother. Her lips curled into a small, almost imperceptible smirk. I'm going to like it here. Gomez clutched his chest dramatically. Be still, my heart. Our daughter is enjoying something. This is monumental. Morticia gave him a sideways glance, though her amusement was evident. I knew you would, darling. A place of secrets and shadows, it suits you. Wednesday tilted her head slightly. It does. For a brief moment, there was silence. A rare but comfortable pause. Then Pugsley, ever the innocent one, chimed in. Do you think they'll let me visit? Wednesday's smirk faded. Doubtful. But if you do, I'd advise against standing near any sharp objects or open flames. Pugsley blinked. Why? She deadpanned. Self-preservation. Gomez let out a hearty laugh. That's my girl. Morticia's gaze softened ever so slightly. Stay sharp, Wednesday. And do try to avoid any unnecessary corpses. No promises, Wednesday replied coolly. The glow within the crystal dimmed as the connection faded. Within seconds, the crystal ball returned to its inert state. Then, without another word, she turned back to her typewriter and resumed typing. Nevermore was proving to be far more delightful than she had anticipated. Meanwhile, the night at Nevermore Academy was cloaked in an eerie stillness, the distant echoes of the festival fading into the wind. Rimuru walked through the dimly lit corridors, his steps light and unhurried, yet every fiber of his being was alert. The darkness embraced him like an old friend, shadows shifting subtly around him, whispering secrets only he could hear. As he moved, a familiar voice spoke in his mind, mechanical yet elegant, a presence that had been with him for as long as he could remember. Less than Master, would you like a complete analysis of the creature you encountered? With the data collected, I can provide a near-perfect assessment of its nature and weaknesses. Greater than. Rimuru smirked. Where's the thrill in that, Raphael? Sometimes, I like to let the pieces fall into place naturally. Less than inefficiency detected. Relying on deduction over absolute knowledge decreases the probability of success by 27.4%. Greater than. He chuckled. Then I'll just have to work within that 72.6%, won't I? Less than acknowledged. Engaging passive observation mode. Greater than. The conversation faded as Rimuru turned into the hallway leading to his quarters. His steps slowed. Something was off. His room's door, unlocked. Worse, it was slightly open. A sliver of darkness peered through the crack, an invitation, or perhaps a warning. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Strange. No one should be able to enter without me knowing. His mind raced through possibilities. An intruder, a foolhardy student, or perhaps, something else entirely. A playful smirk tugged at his lips. If someone had entered his domain uninvited, they were either incredibly powerful, or incredibly stupid. Either way, this would be interesting. Pushing the door open, Rimuru stepped inside, his senses sharpening. The room was cast in shadows, the only light spilling in from the grand Gothic window, painting the space in silver and black. And then, he saw her. Sitting on his bed, as if she had always belonged there. Time seemed to slow. She was breathtaking. Long silver hair cascaded like liquid moonlight, strands shimmering under the faint glow. Her skin was flawless, pale yet radiant, untouched by imperfection. And then, those eyes. A deep, haunting shade of violet, gleaming with intelligence, mystery, and something else, something ancient. They locked onto him, piercing through his very essence, reading him as if he were an open book. For the first time in a long time, Rimuru felt something unfamiliar. Intrigue. She smiled, her lips curving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Then, in a voice smooth as silk, laced with amusement and an undeniable allure, she spoke. Welcome back to our room, Rimuru Nightshade. It's a pleasure to meet you. Rimuru stood frozen for a fraction of a second, an eternity in his mind. Who was she? And more importantly, why did it feel like she had been waiting for him all along?